Good morning, Dan and Amy. And Amy, among the topics covered by Steve Bannon and Ryan Priebus, Washington, Washington, D.C.'s new power couple.
Yeah.
And I mean couple.
Yeah. They're cute together, aren't they?
Although I think Ryan's is married to his high school sweetheart, so I don't think it's going to work out. But
don't tell Bannon that.
On a professional level, they were very complimentary of one another. Actually had a nice rapport with one another, which it's hard to just put that on. I think Ryan Priebus and Steve Bannon are being genuine when they say they get along, even though they come from different places, and they're focused on the implementation of Trump's policy agenda, which is demonstrable, and it indicates an understanding of their respective roles. One of the topics, of course, that they covered was the media. And there was a point of departure between the two because the question was from Matt Schlapp, ACU chairman, you think the coverage is going to get better? And Priebus was optimistic, and Bannon was the opposite of optimistic, but he explained why.
It's not only not going to get better, it's going to get worse every day in the media. And here's why. But by the way, the internal logic makes sense. They're corporatist, globalist media that are adamantly opposed to an economic nationalist agenda like Donald Trump has. Every day it is going to be a fight, and that is what I'm proudest about Donald Trump. All the opportunities he had to waver off this, all the people have come to him and said, oh, you got to moderate. Every day in the Oval Office, he tells Reince and I committed this to the American people, I promised this when I ran, and I'm going to deliver on this.
Well, I'll tell you, I think Bannon is half right. I think it probably is not going to get better and may get worse. I don't know.
But isn't this tiresome? I mean, the media being the opposition party.
No, it's not tiresome for me, but I don't think the reason they're the opposition party is an economic policy reason. If that was the reason, then we'd really have something. We'd have something more substantial and, frankly, easier to address. It would be less personal because it would be a disagreement about policy. I don't think that's really the dynamic. But I think it serves Bannon's interests to suggest that that's the dynamic. Well, for more on that, we're pleased to be joined by one of those globalist, corporatist media types. He is Bret Baier, anchor of Special Report, weekdays, 5 p.m. Chicago time, and also the author of the new book, 3 Days in January, about Ike. Bret Baier, thanks so much for joining us, and condolences on the loss of your colleague, Alan Combs.
Yeah, good morning. It was a tough day yesterday. We said goodbye to Alan, and just earlier in the week said goodbye to Brenda Butler.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Fox family lost two great ones.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate, very sad in both instances. And I know our listeners want to extend condolences with respect to both of those individuals as well. But getting to CPAC and the Priebus-Bannon show yesterday, how did you take their interaction and their distillation of the Trump agenda and the posture you just heard Bannon describe with respect to the media?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just hearing Bannon's voice was news.
Right.
The fact
right.
that he didn't sound like the fact that he didn't sound like Darth Vader breathing, like the ominous voice that he has portrayed in the media. I think was news in and of itself. I think some of the things he hit on struck a chord with all the supporters that voted for Donald Trump. And, they say, yeah, he's in there to be a bull in the China shop. And the China shop doesn't break easily when it comes to Washington. But I do think that some of that whole thing is shtick. It is manufactured to create this opposition party. It's obviously there, but it is souped up by how they portray it and talk about it because it's an easy target. It fires up the base, and there is truth inherent in it. There are news organizations who have made their decision, and that's easy to call out.
So, I mean, Trump's war with the media, do you see it getting any worse? And if so, how could it possibly get any worse?
I think Bannon is right in this. I mean, from what I see is the stories, it's not just good enough to call something out. Now you have to go 3 steps down the line And I do think that it may get tougher for the Trump administration, especially if this investigation into Russia turns up something. I think, there may be more there, but if there's even a sniff of anything, it is going to be a huge deal. Just look at the coverage of the town halls. And, clearly some of it was orchestrated by different groups. We don't know the percentage, but some of it was orchestrated by liberal or Democratic groups.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
When the Obama administration called the Tea Party AstroTurf, and it was manufactured, that was a huge story in the media. Every paper, every network went with AstroTurf. Now, there is some factual evidence and papers and pamphlets of how to do town halls, and there's not a single mention, not a mention.
But doesn't Bannon set up, though, to say the reason because there's such antagonism is because of economic policy disagreements? Like, I'd like to know what percentage of the media understands the border adjustment tax. I'd like to have somebody that, this is so personal. And this is personal, and and you've had major figures from major outlets basically say suspend the normal rules of journalism. We have to go after Trump. We have to get Trump out, even going that far. And so, but it's nice positioning by Bannon because he says, look, we're focused on economic policy to benefit you. They disagree with us. And then when you see the hyper personal nature of some of the coverage, that just feeds the antagonism from Trump supporters to the media. It just makes it easier to make the media the foil.
Easy. It's very easy. And the economic nationalist message, yes, it's there, but it's not the reason the media is not getting along with Trump.
Right.
I mean, that is pure spin. It is much more visceral, as you said. It is much more like looking at Trump, the Trump administration, Trump supporters as insects in a terrarium. Look at that. It crawls over the log. Wow. They crawl over the log. Who knew?
That's a very colorful metaphor. Let me ask you another question about Obamacare, but this was the topic that Pence took up in part during his remarks at CPAC yesterday, and it comes against the backdrop of former House Speaker John Boehner saying that congressional Republicans are basically going to fix the flaws and put a more conservative box around it, but you're not really going to have the repeal and replace of Obamacare that has been advertised. What's your sense of the truth or truthiness of that statement? Because if Boehner is right, you may have a revolt within the revolt.
Yeah. I think this is a danger if Boehner's even half right. I think that the replace has to be pretty detailed. I mean, they have a couple of different plans. Rand Paul has a plan. Tom Price has a plan. It is herding the cats to be able to get them all to run the same direction. And I think the administration has got, a rollout plan and people on board, but you're going to have to see that in good numbers to be able to convince the skeptics who say there is no replace.
I want to move on to something Donald Trump. I thought he stepped in it twice yesterday. He was talking about deportations, that it's a military operation. And what was cause for alarm for many people is when he was asked by Reuters, a reporter from Reuters, about expanding our nuclear weapons capability to put us on top of the pack. Do you think he loses credibility and it scares Americans when he makes comments such as that?
Yeah, well, the military operation clearly was, you had to have a cleanup on aisle 2 because Homeland Security Secretary Kelly immediately after that said, let me make clear, there is no military involved in any operation along the border, and there is no mass deportation. So the White House said it was military in nature, not in, the people pulling it off. Sometimes President Trump is loose with his words. Let's just say it that way. And his supporters know that, and they know what he means. We've never seen a president like this, both on Twitter and in how he talks. So most of the people on Capitol Hill I talk to say, look at the actions of the administration, not necessarily the specific words, every word of President Trump.
Now, I got to ask you this question, Bret Baier. This is just me and you talking now. Amy's out because she doesn't understand this. But
Oh, what is it about math?
it's about, no,
Science?
it's about masculine mystique.
Oh,
There's
I know nothing about that.
There's an interesting piece by Stephen Watson, National Review Online, comparing Trump to JFK and talking about the masculine mystique. And it's a different way of saying what we talked about during the campaign, that he's somebody who projects confidence and strength. And the American electorate has always been attracted to that, particularly from their chief executive. Do you find any validity in that argument as somebody who projects a masculine mystique of your own?
This is very uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good question. I think that, listen, this is a figure that the country knows, has seen for years and years and years. The Apprentice was, kind of an entree. As people in D.C., make fun of it, that this is a reality show we're living in now. But remember that in the psyche and in the memories of people growing up and people who are voters, this was a decisive, businessman who figured out who was going to win and who was going to lose. And, that does project, and he does project that. Now, he stumbles, and he says some things that make people raise their eyebrows, but I do think that there's something to image, and clearly he thinks there is too, because he does a lot, apparently, of his cabinet picks by central casting.
He is Bret Baier, anchor of Fox, special report on Fox News Channel, of course, weekdays 5 p.m. Chicago time, and also the new book, 3 Days in January. Bret, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
We'll see you.
Have a good weekend. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're